Worried. Okay, welcome everyone to Spermasis, Parshas Balak, right? Wow, amazing. All right, let's take a quick look at what's going on. Let's put up the text so we can see what's what. Just a second. Just 1 second. Something that I didn't do. Okay. So we said that this is the story of the lost princess, that the king got upset with. He had 7 sons and a daughter, and got upset with the daughter, and he told me, "The not good take you, may the bad take you." And at night she went to her room, and in the morning nobody knew where she was. She was gone, and the viceroy saw that what Tsar, the king, has from that. So he asked for a horse and a servant and expenses, and came to and started searching for her. And he said that he went in forests, and then he went in deserts, and said he was walking for a desert a long time. He couldn't find her, and he said, we said he saw a path from the side. He decided, since I haven't been able to find her in the desert for so long, I will follow this path and reach to a settled area. And he went for a long time. And that's one of the things that we mentioned, we repeated, that Rabbeinu repeats again and again. He went for a long time. He went for a long time. That it took a long time. And he said after that he saw a castle and many soldiers standing around it. And he said the castle was very beautiful. Let me just make it a little bit bigger. And the soldiers standing around it in fine order. It's very interesting, the order of things here. It starts that he goes in the desert for a long time. He doesn't see anything. And he keeps on searching. And now, he find a path from the side. And now it's the first time that he's seeing something. And what does he see? He sees a castle, which is this world, and many soldiers standing around it. And the castle was very beautiful, and the soldiers stood around it in fine order. He saw the world. He saw the forces of the Sitra Achra standing around in fine order. Says he was afraid of the soldiers, that maybe they would not let him in, and decided, I will go and try. And he left the horse and went to the castle. And they let him enter and didn't hinder him at all. And he went from room to room and didn't stop him. And he came to a palace. And so the king sitting there with a crown and many soldiers standing around him. Many were playing instruments for him. It was very pleasant and beautiful there. And neither the king or any of them asked the viceroy anything. And he saw the delicacies and good food, and he went and he ate. And he went and lay down in the court to see what would be done there, what would happen there. So the this particular castle represents this world, and the soldiers represent the forces of the Sitra Achad that are standing on a person's way. And it said that he's going in, and he goes in to see what's going on. Nobody stops him. Let's just take a little bit more from the story, so we can sort of wrap things up. And he saw that the king called for the queen to be brought, and they went to bring her. And there was a great commotion and great happiness. The musicians played and sang vigorously because they were bringing the queen. And they placed a throne for her and seated her next to him, next to the king. And she was the king's daughter. And he, the viceroy, saw her and recognized her. Later, the queen glanced and saw someone lying in the corner, and she recognized him. And she rose from her throne and went to him, touched him, and asked him, "Do you recognize me?" And instantly he answered her, "Yes, I know who you are. You're the king's daughter who was lost." And he asked her, "How did you come here?" And she said, "Because my father, the king, let the words escape, namely, may the not good should take you. And here, this is the place of the not good." Told her father's very distressed. He'd been searching for her. Then he asks her, "How can I take you out?" And she gives an answer. "You cannot take me out unless you go to a certain place." He said, "Unless you go choose yourself a place and sit there for 1 year. That year you must yearn for me to take me out. And whenever you have free time, you must only yearn and ask and hope expectantly to take me out. And you must fast. And the last day you must fast," and so forth and so on. I don't want to get too much into the story yet, but what I want to touch is this point of the castle and that disruption of order. That first of all, he's in a desert. In other words, he doesn't see anything. He doesn't get life force, doesn't get feels, doesn't get sympathy from anything. But it keeps on going on. Then he sees a little road, a little path from the side, and he said, "Let me take that." And this brings him to the castle, which represents this world. And the soldiers, he understands where they are. He enters, he goes, nobody stops him, and he sees the Basmela. Supposedly, when we're talking here about a Jewish neshama that has been, that came down to this world in order to find the Shekhinah. This is what represents the Melech and his daughter, the Kodesh Baruch Hu and the Shekhinah, and the viceroy is you and me. So supposedly the first thing that we should meet is the castle, the world, soldiers. But that's not what Rabbeinu said. Rabbeinu said here that he went in deserts and in forests, in fields, and he couldn't find it for a long time. And then he finds this path from the side, and then he finds the castle. So what's going on here? One of the most difficult things to realize, for instance, especially in a relationship between parents and their kids, My son told me, we spoke with a rabbi, and said, the rabbi said, when a kid, when a child feels that his father is talking to him and inappropriate way, it's not conducive to relationship, it's not right, it's not the right thing to do. He should voice it, he should say it. That's not the way that the way that you're talking to me is no helping matters, and it just drives me away or whatever. So I told him, that this would be fine and wonderful, but there's a problem. The problem is that the child doesn't have the advantage of looking at his parent and him from the side, a perspective from the side. So here's the father speaking to me in an inappropriate manner, so I should answer him. Tell him, listen, this is not appropriate. This is not conducive to a relationship. Because a child is born to parents. And the relationship that he has with them, whatever it is they do for him, is the world. That is the world. A child doesn't have any other perspective. So if Chas v'Chalila, the parent is being abusive, the child naturally assumes that it's his fault. That he's bad. If the parent is pushing the child away for any reason, so the child begins to feel, that it's appropriate, he should be rejected. In fact, afterwards he starts perpetuating situations of rejection, so forth and so on. So I told my son this, and I told him, I said, I'll let you on a secret. Just the same way that a child is not free to see the relationship of what his parents, he has between him and his parents, in perspective. In other words, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. It's not the only perspective the child doesn't have. Another one is that parents, by and large, try to do the best thing for their children. And what our parents did for us, unless they were chas v'chalila psychopaths, I mean, I would say 80, 90%, 95% was good. They gave us shelter, they gave us food, they cared about us. There were certain things that happened, that caused us pain. It caused us, and one of the things that we don't see is all the good that they did for us and they gave us. The bad we remember forever, and we blame them for it. But what about the good? They never did anything good. Well, that's their job, crying out loud. What do you mean? This is their parents, no? Nevertheless, Kibud Av V'em is a very big inyan. It needs chizuk. Still, this is another part where the perception and reality are not the same. And the child is naturally not open to seeing things from a quote unquote objective point of view. He sees it from his point of view as a child. So I told my son, I'll tell you a secret. Parents have absolutely no idea that that they are causing traumas to their children with the way that they speak or the way that they behave. They have no idea. Because the very same way that for the child, the parents are absolutely everything. They're the world. And his father represents the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and his mother represents the Shekhinah. And for the longest time, unless you actually work on it, when you get into Yiddishkeit, your image, your relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu is very heavily influenced by the relationship that you have with your father. Because your father was a standing for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and your mother was a standing for the Shekhinah. So the very same thing that the parents are everything. They actually make the world in which the child lives and grows and rebels against, or whatever it is. They represent the constant, and the child is somebody who's going through that constant. The parent is also locked in a certain myopia. When the children are very small, the Gemara says, Bra kara de avur, the son is like the thigh of the parent. As a parent, you don't see them as somebody else. You see them as your children, who either are giving you a lot of trouble, or they're being good children, or there's something to worry about, or they're giving you nachas. By the first time really, unless you're really with it, the first time you actually notice them is when they rebel against you. In many ways, the rebellion is their way of lifting up the flag and saying, yo, I'm here. I'm somebody else. I'm not you. I'm not an extension of you. So, Lamaisa, I want to take this particular example and use it for in the story that we're talking about. When we come into this world, we take this world and everything that it gives for granted. I mean, we feel good or we don't feel good, or good things happen to us or bad things happen to us, whatever it is. And when we're looking for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when we're looking for the Shekhinah, what we first of all find, and for a long time, is the desert. What it means is that we're unable to get a perspective in which we say, okay, this is me, and there's a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and then there's the world around me. And the world around me and my history and my story are not something whether I like or don't like or whatever it is, but it's a given. It's a certain condition. It's how shall I say it? It's a stage. It's the props in which I'm supposed to work and look for Kodesh Baruch Hu. When you speak to people who are not religious, or when you speak to, people who are religious, so either they don't see HaKadosh Baruch Hu at all, or they take HaKadosh Baruch Hu for granted, and we keep in Torah mitzvahs because that's what we do. That's our life. We live in a religious society. That's what we do. But we still are living in this world. We are running for the Knesset. We're trying to be politicians. We're trying to influence things. We're trying to do all kinds of different things. We don't realize yet that this world is a something else. It's a castle. What does it mean? This world is the stadium in which the game takes place. Your station in life, how much money you have, how much money you don't have. It's very easy that it should become the be all and end all of what your life is about. This is not seeing the castle. It's a world, it's life. What do you want from me? Seeing the castle means that you are able to take a perspective. And you're saying the fact that this person has money is because he needs to have money for the tikkun of his neshama. And the fact that that person does not have money, and the fact that I am where I am, with the hindrances that I have, this is the condition which is the best for my neshama. That's what I'm supposed to do. This is the money that Kadosh Baruch Hu gave the Vaisra. The body is the horse. The servant is my intelligence. And as long as there are other people who either have more money than me or less money than me, or are smarter than me, or not as smart as I am, or are more able physically or less able physically, or more talented, less talented. As long as I am busy with comparisons, that means I'm not seeing the castle. The castle is life. That's what life is about. And I'm busy comparing myself to other people. And it's not a simple thing. I mean, it sounds like I'm looking down my nose at that thing, but we grow up that way. That thing that Thomas, that's the way you grow up. You grow up assuming that that cocoon that you are in, that bubble, that your story is reality. You don't have that perspective to look from the side. You have to work with a lot of tefillah, with a lot of talking to Kodesh Baruch Hu in order to be able to see the world for what it is. Meaning everything that happened to me in my life and everything that is happening to me in my life is part and parcel of my quest to find the Shekhinah and to get her out, get her back to my Father. That work, that long time of search, midbar, medaber, talking to Kodesh Baruch Hu, speaking to Kodesh Baruch Hu. The fight over there is just to be able to gain the proper perspective. So you can see it's a castle. All these beautiful soldiers are the forces of the Sitra Achra, whose job is to dissuade me from seeing what it is that I should be looking at and get caught up with, how good the food is, how beautiful the house is, what luxurious car I have or don't have, and so forth and so on. And all this takes a long time just to be able to see it in perspective. And the thing that this perspective is shimmering, it goes in and out of focus while you're looking for it. But if you are staunchly stubborn to keep on keeping on, you get to a certain place in your emunah. You get to a certain level where you already know that it's a castle. As we'll notice later on, even when you know that it's a castle, there are the trial and tribulations of getting the Shekhinah out when you already realize what's going on. When you know that this world is just a dot on an endless road, this life is just a dot on my road, your road, that will last forever. It's just a dot, 70, 80 years, 90 years, 100 years. That's it. 110. And that particular plateau of understanding this world is a castle. All the beauty, the luxury, and success of this world are ephemeral. They're not real. But they are real enough to be the conditions in which I'm supposed to operate. They're not accidental. Because Baruch has put them there. And the specific reality that I grew up with, my specific story, my parents, my past, my talents, my whatever. These are my conditions. This is where I'm supposed to look for the Shekhinah. So getting there, getting to that position where you realize that what you're looking for, what you're looking at in this world is a castle. It's not reality. It's a condition within reality. And you're supposed to not to be diverted, but focus on the Shekhinah. And when you're working at it for a while, you learn Torah, you daven, make Izbedidus, you speak to friends, you influence friends, you makar people to Kodesh Baruch Hu. All this constitutes the road to a realization that this world is real, but it's not real. It's real in the sense that I'm supposed to operate it, and I'm supposed to make choices, and I'm supposed to use it in order, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to find the Shekhinah. But I don't lose sight of the fact that this is just preconditions. This is the hurdle race that I'm supposed to get over in order to get the Shekhinah. It's not the reality of its own. It's not that I am rich or I am poor or I'm smart or I'm dumb or I'm this or I'm that. It's not that at all. Being rich or poor or smart or dumb, whatever it is, are conditions along my way to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to find the Shekhinah. It's not the reality of its own. So Rabbeinu is teaching us here that there is an incredible amount of work that needs to be put in order just to realize that realization. This life is not about getting richer or poorer. You have to make sure that you pay your bills. You don't, that you don't become a balchod and so on and so on. But nevertheless, to come to a point where this thing is clear, this thing is clear to you, takes a lot of work. So, it's easy for a person sort of like to say like, but why does it have to be so difficult? I mean, I'm coming to this shiur and, and our Pinchas is speaking and he's talking. And 80%, 90% or more of the stuff that he talks to us about is that what do you do when things go wrong? How do you overcome the difficulties? Rabbi Twersky wrote a book, a sefer, I think, for recovering addicts, alcoholics, whatever. It's called When Do the Good Times Start? When am I, when do I get to the end? When I get to, to make a l'chaim? When does this happen? The answer, of course, is every step of the way is the good time. When I told you that children look at their parents as everything, and when their parents behave to them in an inappropriate manner, it causes damage. It causes the children to look at themselves in a certain way and so forth and so on. I also said that the children don't realize that probably between 95 to 99% of their relationship with their parents, they're getting good stuff. I said they're getting shelter, they're getting food, they're getting love, they're getting attention, they're getting good stuff. But all that stuff they take for granted. You're a parent, you're supposed to do that. They don't see it at all. I don't think you'll ever find a child going to psychiatrist and say, man, I had such a great life. Wow. I don't know, my parents, every once in a while, maybe they got upset, but that's okay. I got so much good stuff in it. It's just unbelievable. That happens only after, later when the parents passes away. Then they sort of remind themselves of the good stuff they got from the parents. But even that passes. And they keep on digging in all the painful stuff. But they never see, or unless they actually do something to look for it and see it, they won't see the good that they got. And they got 99% good. The same thing applies for our walking in the desert. It looks like a desert. Why to me it looks like a desert? Because our tools to discern and decide whether our lives are successful or not, whether our lives are pleasant or not. These are very crude tools. The feelings are very, very crude tools. They're important. But they're not facts. Feelings are not facts. Feelings are feelings. And it's when we mix it up that we start looking at it and seeing that, you know, every morning you get up and you put on the telescope. You go to shul, talis, put on film, you daven, better, worse. It also says, he mentions in the Kuta Lochas, we spoke about that the main problem that the people that are against Yiddishkeit, they don't have a problem with Torah, with us learning Torah. Okay, they learn physics, we learn Torah. They don't have a problem with us doing mitzvahs because, that's as far as they're concerned, some kind of a social, whatever it is. You can see they behave like animals. So you blame the mitzvahs, so whatever it is. I don't even want to repeat their nonsense. They think that the thing that they cannot take is the simcha of Torah and mitzvahs. What did a simcha mazal say? Where's the simcha come from? Simcha from dancing with the Torah? Have you ever seen a physics professor take Einstein theory of relativity and dancing with it once a year? Never happened. That never will happen. That's the thing that they're against. Because what they cannot understand, and something which in the desert we don't realize either, is we are in direct connection with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Rav Nosson says you need to take a tzitzis, which costs you what? 30 shekels. And it's, the entire world cannot contain the light of one of your 4 tzitzis. There's a tzitzis. They say that tzaddik, it says tzitzis is a shatevis of tzaddik yafrid tzitziyosef tamid. That you're supposed to open up the strings of your tzitzis to make sure that it's not knotted. There is even some shivas la'alocha that if I'm knotted in his whatever. I don't think we're passing that way, but nevertheless, it says tzaddik yafri tzitziyosef tamid. What's tzaddik has nothing to do except play with his tzitzis all day long. What's that separation? So I heard from Rav Hagen, Shlita, he says that tzitzis is, you have here a bunch of strings that are standing together. When they're knotted together, they represent like something you can't see through. Tzitzis comes from the root, the grammatical root of le'atzitz, to peak. Kodesh Baruch Hu is mitzitz min hacharachim. Kodesh Baruch Hu is peaks in the little spaces that there are between that castle of this world. Kodesh Baruch Hu is looking at separating the chutim of the tzitzis represents the opening of the opaqueness of this castle, of this world, of this Astara. The tzitzis represents uritem oto, represents the looking at the Kadosh Baruch Hu looking at us. But it takes a long time in the desert for us to realize that, to get a feeling that, wow, I'm wearing tzitzis. I remember Mori Rabbi Psicha Balev, he told me, when people are on the way, towards, realizing that this world is just a castle. So the avoiders that they consider to be really something that they can get nechasuach from are chatzos, vasikin, the hard stuff. He said, but tzaddikim, they get their chayos from the simple stuff, from the tzitzis, from the tefillin, the fact that you put on film in the morning, the fact that you breathe. Kol haneshama ta'alakam. When you are stepping in the desert, you may feel, the desert is midbar, mishon medaber, you may feel that, hey, it's not exciting. It's really not making my blood boil. It's like, it doesn't float my boat. I don't feel excited. But that's okay. This is just feelings. You are already searching for the Shekhinah. And every single step that you take, every single urge that you have and will that you have to get close to Kodesh Baruch Hu, or even being dismayed of how far you are from Kodesh Baruch Hu, is in itself an eternity, is in itself infinity. None of that is lost. That's what the Zohar Kodesh says. Les reusa tova disavim. Rabbeinu repeats it again and again and again. Not even one good intention, one good thought gets lost. We should all be Yerushalayim. We should all be into staying away from the bears, staying away from doing things we shouldn't do, because there is literally hell to pay. But you have to understand that it doesn't end there. Hell is not a destination. Gehenna is not a destination. That's somebody's a Russia without children. I don't even know who fits its category today. But even when somebody has to go through whatever he has to go through, there's an end to it. Even if a person has to go to Gehenna, every neshama has to go through Nahar Dinu in order to burn off the titles from Adam Hazeh. Whatever it is, the person needs to go. But that's just the beginning. There's just a dot in the beginning of the road. There is Gan Eden, and the Gan Eden is where you're going. And you're building it every single thirsty step you take in the desert. Because you put tzitzis this morning. Put on tzitzis this morning. Because you put on film. Because he says, I can't believe I'm thinking these thoughts. How can I possibly think these another piece of Gan Eden? You don't see it now. Like a child doesn't see the good he got from his parents. Like a person takes the air to breathe, the air he breathes is, of course, what are you talking about? You mean not to breathe? Of course. Well, nothing is Movan made up. We're getting schar for every step of the way. But even in this world, after you really put the work in, you get to the point where you already know. You don't have to fight in order to see that this world as a castle means it's standing in front of you. You already got the perspective. You're looking at it from the side. You say, yes, I have parnasa problems, or I have health problems, or I have children problems, or I have whatever it is, problems that I may have. But this is just details in my quest to get close to Kodesh Baruch Hu. And what you get when you get this realization is you are touched by the Shekhinah. You get a glimpse. That glimpse is incredibly important. The reason why it's so important is because the road to infinity in this life is so arduous, it's so hard, it's so fraught with hurdles that we must get an exposure to the light at a certain point in time. Like Am Yisrael in the Midbar, we got the Torah. Everybody saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then that particular exposure was taken away and life starts. But you get that exposure. You get a taste in the mitzvah. You cannot even say it to anyone. You can explain to anyone what you saw and what you felt. But you're changed forever. Your life may not necessarily become any easier. In fact, in many cases, it may become more difficult because the stakes are greater. You want to become a billionaire now. It's not just merely making parnasa. Ruchnis, I'm talking about. So you meet hurdles that all those who want to become tycoons have to meet. But you saw a glimpse. And once you see this, you can never ever, once you see this, you can never ever, you'll never forget this. You'll never forget it. You'll never forget the fact that you saw what you saw, that you saw the Shekhinah. The Kadosh Baruch Hu lifted the veil. And for a moment, you saw. You know, many people get to a, many, different people experience these things differently. I remember that I read the book of about Tshuva that wrote it, and that particular person, talked about the road going into Yiddishkeit and how difficult it was, and all the questions, and all the sfekos, and all whatever it is that he had to go through, she had to go through, whatever it was. I think it's a she, and she writes that it became too much, and she went to the kitchen, and she absolutely did not know which way this is going. And she describes that she was standing there in the kitchen, And at that point, suddenly the realization of everything will be all right. It's okay. You feel Hashem. You see. You don't know what you see. You have no idea what it is that you have seen, but you know that you saw it, and you'll never forget it. When Eliyahu Hanavi was given, this cake, when he was running away from Izebel, and he went to sleep under a tree, and an angel touched him, woke him up, and said, "You have a long road to take. So here, go ahead." And he gave him a ugat safin. I don't even know how you say it in English. Give him a certain cake to eat, and he ate. And the Tanakh says, that he walked bekoyach achilahi, with the energy that he got from that eating of 40 days until he came to Har Sinai. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu started speaking, spoke to him and told him whatever he's supposed to give. The prophecy, supposed to pass the torch to Elisha. When you get to the state that you see the castle, I mean, it's not just the world I live in, but you see it in perspective. It's a castle. These are the conditions that I got in order to look at HaKadosh Baruch Hu in them. Character traits, family, my story, my problems, my complexes, my talents, are all conditions in which I'm supposed to operate. It's not the world. It's not the truth. It's not the be all and end all of everything. It's just conditions. This is what my test consists of. And then you get to see the Shekhinah. After you go in the desert, you're davening, you're doing things without feeling any taste. You get to a certain point where you get this perspective and you understand, no. This world is created for work. And these are just the conditions. And those beautiful armies are the Sitra Achra, that they're trying to sway me away from seeing what the truth is. And then you get a glimpse of the Shekhinah. And she comes and she touches you. And this is a touch that you will never, ever, ever forget. And you'll have to walk for a long time with the power of Achilahi, Bekoach Achilahi. It's just the beginning of a much higher road. But nevertheless, you've seen it. You touched, the Shekhinah touched you, and you will never, ever forget it. Ad Kan Bezat Hashem, this is the shir for today, Tzipor Maisis. Now the funny lady is going to say that the recording is stopped.